And we're live. Hello and welcome everyone to the Martial Energetics web show. I am Andrew, and joining me today is Dane. How are you doing, Dane?
I'm doing great. How are you this evening, Andrew?
It's been a long day. It's good to get home and get to talk to you about some fun topics. One of our favorite topics, martial arts and self-defense. Today we want to talk about the worst things that can happen during self-defense and a fight. We're going to be talking about the eye target. Now, Dane, why don't you start us off? How is the eye target relevant to self-defense?
Well, we're kind of doing the series where we're talking about dirty tricks in self-defense, and we started off talking about biting, and the main idea being that biting is a hazard, but not a tactic. In other words, it's something that you have to guard against, but it's not something that is recommended that you do. The eye target is both a hazard as well as a tactic, meaning it is something that you have to guard against if you're training for self-defense, then it's something that you want to train to guard against, obviously. And even if you're training in a sporting competition type framework, if you want your training to be effective in a self-defense context, then you also need to train to be able to protect your own eyes as a hazard. And there are, and even in the sporting context, there are rules against certain things. I mean, obviously it's against the rules to intentionally attack the eyes, but you also have to there's rules against how you can hold your hands, and so that it's less likely that eye injuries will happen by accident, because that stuff used to happen when fighters would kind of hold their hands in this position and just advance forward, and eye injuries would happen unintentionally. So they designed rules around that. So point being, even if there are rules that say you can't do this in this context, it still makes sense to train in a way that you are protecting yourself. And even if you decide I would never do this to somebody for whatever reason, it doesn't mean that it's not going to stop it from happening to you in the wrong kind of circumstance. So you need to take this into account in your training, and train accordingly, rather than rely on an assumption that somebody else is going to follow some kind of voluntary ethical restriction on what they're willing to do to you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, many of my teachers would recommend they would create tactics where we're practicing and we can simulate the eye attack, or we can make our opponent aware of the eye attack is right there, so they should be guarded against it. We've done this in push hands, where we just touch each other's face, or we wave our fingers across the face to show them that they weren't protecting their eyes, they weren't paying attention. So it's a incredibly effective technique. If you ever get hit in the eyes, you know that the sensation and the crying that happens almost right away, the pain that gets right to you and you almost fall on the ground, it's pretty intense to get hit in the eye. So how would we go about protecting our own eyes against getting attacked, or against defending from even just objects? What should we be doing?
I mean, it starts with first having the awareness that this is a possibility, and then training as if it's the case. Like you said, with your training, you're when you're training with a partner, you're going for each other's eyes, so that you have to defend against that kind of attack. And I mean, it's It's not so much as special techniques to defend the eyes or anything. It's a matter of just keeping hands or whatever from getting near your face. And the most important thing is understand it's a possibility. Recognize, don't rely on the fact that it's not going to happen. And when you're training with a partner, give each other signals to signal each other when that target is not being protected, so that you can learn to protect it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then with regard to self-defense situation, thinking about the eye as a target, the eye is absolutely one of the best targets there is on the human body, not just for the not just for the physical damage that it can cause, but for the actual loss of a perceptual system. A person who has lost access to their sight is extremely limited in their capabilities and much less of a threat. So the really, if in a self-defense situation, you're going to choose whatever target is available to you. I mean, that's the first rule. But all things being equal, the eye should be the first resort, not the last resort. And for me, a lot of action movies are ruined when the two people are engaged in an epic struggle and they're rolling all over, and it could end at any time if one of them was just willing to stick their thumb in the other one's eye. It would completely it would completely ruin the scene, of course, which is why it doesn't happen. But it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like, oh, well, I've tried everything else, and okay, now I'm going to go for the eye. If the eye is available, go for it. Take it. It should be, if you're talking about using force up to and including deadly force to prevent the commission of a forcible and atrocious crime, in other words, to preserve your life or something equally valuable, the most vulnerable target should be the first resort, not the last resort. And it's logically it's easy enough to understand this, but it's important to actually train this way, actually train as if it was so, because if you can see the same thing in lots of and even in sporting matches when two people are grappling, and it's like, they don't go for the eye because it's against the rules, but you can see there's plenty of opportunity that if they were actually trying to hurt each other, either one of them at any time could effectively attack that target. And if in like a wrestling grappling situation, or in any style where clinching is allowed, the being aware of this possibility is going to change how you go about it. It's going to change what you do if you're not relying on your opponent to follow that particular rule. So exactly. Actually putting it in your training and making it real in your mind is important, because for most of us will never be in that situation, but self-defense training is for those of us who do end up in that situation. And we've heard of the way that murderers or rapists are often identified is with skin, the DNA from skin under the fingernails of the victim. And if the victim has skin under their fingernails, especially if the victim is able to claw the attacker's face, that means that they were in a position they were able to attack the eye target, but for whatever reason, under the circumstances, that wasn't the behavior that came out of them. So you have to make it real in training and actually do it in training, if you want that to be the behavior that comes out of you under pressure, rather than doing something ineffective like just scratching the skin.
Yeah. So for those who choose to survive, what is the best way to attack the eye?
That's a good way to put it, because in the type of situation we're talking about, it might be a horrific thing to do, but if it's a choice of surviving or not surviving, and you choose to do whatever it takes, it may be that you have to use force on another human being. It may be that you have to attack the eye target, and if that's the case, we talk about the holy trinity of the eye target, because there are basically three ways of attacking the eye, depending on the intended result you're trying to achieve, which are poke, slash, and gouge. And basically, poking means you're thrusting usually the end of the thumb, but it could be a finger, straight forward into the eye. And the predictable result of that is it's going to make the person move away from you head first. So it's possibly going.
Put them on their heels, taking a step back.
It's right. The spinal reflex is going to move the body away from the injury head first, and away from you head first, in order to mitigate the injury. And so that's a way of getting a person to move backwards away from. If you need to turn, the body sideways, you can slash horizontally across the eye with the tip of the finger or something similar, and that the spinal reflex in response to that causes the head and the body to turn sideways again to mitigate the injury. And then if it's the case that we absolutely need the eye to be destroyed, we absolutely need to blind this person, then that's what gouging is. And basically that involves, first you have to immobilize the head, because the natural response to injury is going to be the person who's going to try to pull away. So you have to immobilize the head, and then dig the thumb into the eye socket. I mean, we use the second knuckle as like the baseline of what we're trying to achieve, trying to bury the thumb into the eye socket up to the second knuckle, either dislodging the eyeball or rupturing it. And if that is what it takes to survive, then that's what you're going to have to do, and you're not going to be able to go there for real under pressure unless you have gone there in your mind in training. So in training, we have a clear intent of the outcome we're trying to achieve, and we go through the motions realistically, of course, in a way that nobody will get hurt, and we make it real in our minds, so that if you ever need this to save your life, it's going to be there. There won't be any hesitation or uncertainty. You'll know exactly what to do, and be able to do it.
Gosh, yeah. Every time we talk about the eye target, it always reminds me of that Tim Larkin story about his student that caught the guy in the eye and then saved herself from like being raped and maybe murdered. So yeah, those kind of stories are just, they really demonstrate how effective that technique can be, how it only takes, it doesn't matter how big you are, doesn't matter how strong you are, as long as you can deliver that attack properly, it's very effective. There's very little defense once you've gotten into the target.
we don't even talk in terms of techniques. We talk in
Mhm.
terms of targets and injuries. So like, the
Mhm.
eye target is a target. There's various ways you can injure it.
Mhm.
It's just like Larry the Cable Guy. However you get the job done, get her done one way or another.
Yeah.
And yeah, Tim tells a great story about a student of his who was able to prevent the commission of a forcible and atrocious crime against herself
Mhm.
by
Mhm.
using this target. And there's also um, uh, there's a newsreel footage that I like to use of a woman who foiled a home invasion this way. So
Oh.
um, it's one thing to say, oh, I would never do that to somebody, but if you're dealing with a situation with somebody bigger, faster, stronger, armed with deadly intent, and your life or something equally valuable is on the line, um, then there's that's when you want to have this information readily available and be able to act on it. And this is really the biggest challenge with training to attack the eye target. And this is often I start with this as the first target to just kind of get over this hump, because people have an aversion to this. People have an
Mhm.
aversion to injuring another person this way, and often they kind of it's kind of like almost a gross out reaction, like they just cringe and
Mhm.
wince to just even think about doing it. But that is exactly the glitch that will cause you to hesitate in that situation if you needed to save your life. So it's actually training. The mechanics of it are pretty easy of injuring the eyeball. It's a soft target. It's
Mhm.
really much more important, I think, the to do the mental training, to develop the mental fortitude to go there if and when necessary. So that's the again, it comes down to awareness and the mental component of the training to mentally prepare yourself to do what's necessary to do, because the physical part is really pretty easy.
Yeah, that's very true. We practice all these moves in the air in traditional martial arts, but these are real things that you're doing. If you have no idea of the intention of what you're doing, then you miss the point. So this is one of those things when we say, okay, we just do this in the air, and then now you just move closer to your training partner, and then you see at what point they back off and they're like, okay, yeah, that's close enough, we're good. You don't need to push any closer to my eye. So it's a very, you have to pay very close attention when you're working on these kind of techniques. So don't do anything without consent, and do it very slow. Please don't train eye techniques fast. Every time someone trains eye techniques fast, it's a bad day. It's a bad day.
Well, I mean, it's kind of an obvious statement, but really, this is the human body is not an appropriate training tool for training
Mhm.
power and speed.
Mhm.
The human body is the ideal training tool for training precision and accuracy, and that's what you should use your human training partner for, is training the precision and accuracy and making the movements um, as close to what would happen in real life, slowly and gently, so that nobody gets hurt, but make it real in your mind. So, like you were talking about coming close to your partner's eye, that's not how we do it. We actually touch the eyeball. We put the tip of the thumb or the tip of the finger on the eyeball. We actually press on the eyeball, because that's what you would actually do in real life. We don't want to imagine that we're doing it. We want to
Mhm.
actually do it softly and gently and slowly enough that nobody gets hurt. But we want to actually physically go through the motions in training, so that if you ever have to go there in real life, it won't be the first time, and your brain basically knows I already know what to do. Just do it as hard and fast as I can.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that was an emotional roller coaster for me, Dane. So thank you very much. This is the second part of our series. The first part was biting. The second part was the eye. What's the third part of our series, Dane?
So next we're going to talk about the groin target, and I'm sure that one will be even more fun.
Yes, it's a ton of fun. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight. And if you want to see more, please subscribe. And we got plenty more content where this came from. So, Dane, thank you very much for your time, and live long and prosper.
Thanks for being here. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.